Hi everyone and welcome to the latest episode of Future Work World. I'm Barry Winkless, head of the Future of Work Institute. Future Work World is CPL's podcast for the now and next of work. I'm really excited today to be joined by John Kennedy, head of HR Organisational Development at Irish Rail and vice chairperson of CIPD. Welcome, John.
Barry, good morning. How are you?
Great to have you here on the show at last.
I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. John, I'm going to start by asking about your career journey in Irish Rail. I know you've had a long, distinguished career, we'll say, in Irish Rail to where you are now, you know, heading up to HROD function within Irish Rail and vice chairman of CIPD as well. So I'm kind of interested just in that journey, how you got to here, and then we can maybe go a bit deeper on some of the work that you've done with Irish Rail.
Okay, I started work in 1983 as an apprentice fitter, and so I'm a fitter turner by trade. Wasn't really. Okay, how can I put it? Into sort of being an apprentice. Didn't really want to be an apprentice. But my father kind of looked at me and handed me 4 forms and said, "Fill them out." I went, "Okay." So got one of them, which was CIE, and so started in September '83, and then got let go. Worked outside for a few small firms, which was very informative. Not that I realised it at the time, Barry, but it had an effect on me in relation to my work ethic and things like that, you know, over the course of my career. And I was lucky enough then to get an opportunity to come back into Irish Rail as it was then, and worked on locomotives, maintenance on locomotives, and then went to college in 1994 in the National College of Industrial Relations, now the National College of Ireland, and got an opportunity to work in HR. Came down, took a pay cut, a significant pay cut at the time, just as we got married, and sort of that's another story.
I can still feel the pain of that pay cut.
Oh, it's still a pain there somewhere.
It's just the way you said it, you know. It's okay. We've all been there.
But in the long run, was the best thing I ever did. So I ended up there, worked in the Dart for 4 years, worked into different roles in the Dart and Suburban Rail as was at the time, and then got my first HR manager's job in 2004. Worked there for 3 years. Then moved back into the mechanical engineering for 4 years as the works manager in Inchicore. So from a boy from Inchicore, actually run the place was great. And then became the infrastructure HR manager and into the role that I'm in at the moment now.
Interesting journey. John, I want to come specifically to a big topic that I know that you're highly passionate about, which is lean. Yeah. Right. And I know you drove a huge amount of transformation through the lens of lean within Irish Rail. Just for the listeners and viewers out there, top line, what is lean?
I suppose my own opinion on lean is just to be continuously curious, is what I'd call it, to innovate on a regular basis, and not to be satisfied with the status quo. That's the way I would put it now, and that's the way we kind of worked at it. Yeah, you know, the academics will say it's a severe dislike of waste and trying to be efficient. Yeah, and it is though. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying it's not
Muda and all that good stuff.
Exactly,
yeah, absolutely.
And Tim Wood and the 7 wastes and the 5 whys and all of this and the 5S. But to me, it's about hearts and minds. It's about at the heart of it all. That's really what it's about.
I'm interested, John, that, you know, so I'm glad you brought up the academic side of things, because oftentimes we can get caught up in all of these methodologies and we forget about, you know, what the hell they're all for ultimately. Yeah. I'm interested in the motivation that brought you to the philosophy. You know, when was the moment, or were you part of a program? Was a program already there? What was that moment where you said, actually, do you know what? We need to look at things differently here. We need to maybe look at these things through a different lens. When was that?
In January of 2007, we got a new chief mechanical engineer. He came in explicitly wanting to use and operate lean. Yeah, that was his MO for how he ran his business. Yeah, and he came from South Africa to Rolls Royce to one of the Brascos in the UK across to ourselves. So he was looking for a works manager. He interviewed 8 or 9 people, wasn't happy. And the head of talent at the time in the company was a friend of mine. And he said, brought me for a coffee, and he said, would you be interested in doing the works manager? And I said, no, because I had a previously not a great experience on applying for a previous role within the mechanical engineering. And he said to me, but it's a different there's a new CME.
Yeah.
And I said, oh yeah, that's a fair point. So I met him. I met him for a chat, and it wasn't an interview. So all the inappropriate questions were asked, and there was like,
I have to say, I always loved particularly in Ireland, the differentiation between a chat and an interview.
Yeah. And I mean, he asked me sort of, do you watch sport? And, I loved rugby. So I'm a Leinster season ticket holder, and I go to the matches and stuff like that. And he was big into his rugby. So we kind of bonded a bit over that. And he started talking about lean. He started talking about how he wanted to change. And that is what interested me. Yeah. Because maybe of my previous experience at the interview. So I said to him towards the end of the chat, I said, no, so I'm not an engineer. And he said, he says, I don't want a bleep engineer. He says, I want someone who can manage people. And I said, well, I can do that, Biffy, Yeah. So he said, would you be interested in formally applying for the job? So I did the interview, and lo and behold, then I got it. Yeah. And so that's how we started.
So you're in this new role, right? You have a boss who's really pushing this new methodology. What was those first few stories of success, of failure? Obviously, John, you're working on this stuff, and I have my own experience of change and transformation. The good comes with the bad. So, what were those first steps? What did it look like? Have you any stories of success, any stories of failure? As I know you shared some with me before, so just interested in that starting moment.
Well, we did. We did two things initially, I suppose. Firstly, he had brought somebody in to do 5S training. Yeah. And he says, I want you to sit in on the program. Okay. He says, just sit at the back. He says, I don't want you involved in it. He says, we'll let some of the other managers, the actual workshop managers, be involved. And so I was sitting there and just listening and seeing what was happening. And in the same vein then, when I started to walk around all the workshops, my name was still inscribed. Oh, I'm not advocating graffiti here now. But my name
inscribed, okay. So that's
sort of, exactly. Into one of the lockers. Okay. So I said, okay. And I was looking at that, and there was the lockers weren't great, and the staff facilities weren't great. So when you talk about, your academics, so you look at, your Maslow and your principles and all of these sort of carry on. So the first thing we did was we gutted locker rooms. We gutted kitchens, we canteen facilities, we bought new goods, we gave people a place they'd be happy to come in to work in for start. So that was sort of the good thing. That was one of the first.
And very visible.
Yeah, extremely visible.
Yeah.
And as they say, the low-hanging fruit was easy.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
But it kind of signaled
an intent.
Change and intent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then going back to the training bit, I was looking at how they were implementing the training and the managers that were going at it. And it was almost like if you gave me a job, Barry, and I went off and did it, but the 6 other people on the team weren't involved. Yeah. That's effectively what it was. So it wasn't bringing anyone with them. So I said I'd feedback basically was you need to stop the training. It's just not working. You need to get into fellas' heads more than on hearts. Then you need to sort of give them tools. And so we engaged a couple of coaches then at that stage. And all the coach did was he walked 2 steps behind you all the time. And you were walking around every day. And next thing, suddenly you might sort of say, maybe if we change the direction of the flow through that cell, that it might work better. And he'd say, oh, geez, why don't we try it? Yeah. And then I'd suddenly look at him and sort of say, you said that to me about a week ago, didn't you? I might have, I might not have. Yeah. And it was that sort of, how should I call it, reinforcement and the ability to try something, and even if it didn't work, to change it and to do it again. Yeah. And there was no sort of, what did you do that for? Yeah. It didn't work. Yeah. That was never a thing. Yeah, it wasn't successful rather than it didn't work. Yeah, how can we make it more successful? Yeah, so that's how we started to clean up the workshops. Apart from doing the basic stuff of getting rid of all the crap that was around and years of waste. Yeah, I'm interested in, obviously an organisation that had done things a certain way for a long period of time. You're coming in with a new approach, new methodologies, new ways of coaching and all this kind of stuff. What sticks in your mind
around the resistance sides of things? You know, was there large resistance, or did you find that once you made that break into coaching and shadowing, did everything fall into place, or was it easy as that, or you know, was there a bit more work to be done?
I know there was a lot more work to be done in order to get the lads to feel comfortable and to feel safe, that they could, that we could change things, and that there was no sort of barriers to saying something, and if they spoke up, that it was. The one thing that always stuck with me, you know, and again, you talk about sort of, I said, some of the work in my formative years. One of the jobs I did previously before coming into Irish Rail was I used to do maintenance on a plastics factory. It's no longer there now. But, and you get call outs, and one weekend of 4 we used to be on. So one of the times I got called out, and the biggest production line they have, the machine is broken. It wasn't working. The bubble wasn't sort of engaging in point of view of the plastic as it came through the rollers. And I said to the operator, I said, "What's the problem?" And because someone had sort of said that to me, he said, "Just because he or she operate a machine doesn't mean they don't know how the thing works. And just because you're a craft worker doesn't mean that you know how it works either." So I said to him, I said, "So what's the problem?" He says, "We're getting a bubble up to about the second level, and then it's sort of falling in somewhere. So maybe there's one of the valves up there." He said, "Okay." That. So I said, "Fine." I went to the first valve, took it up, took apart, cleaned it, put a new valve kit on it, you know, and I said, "All right, Billy, it's like, give it a whack again, you know," and it wasn't that, it was the second valve. So I saved myself God knows how many hours, you know.
Asking a simple question.
By asking a simple question. So I don't have all the answers. I've never claimed to have all the answers. And the lads that are overhauling and maintaining the fleet for Iarnród Éireann, they have all the answers. Do you know what I mean?
So if I'm reading between the lines there, bringing this lean philosophy in ultimately led to this culture of safety in terms of being able to speak up about things. Did you notice when that happened, I'm assuming there was a whole load of opportunities all of a sudden presented themselves in terms of improvement? You know, you mentioned curiosity. I think it's a lovely way to describe it. You know, I'm assuming you started to find stuff all over the place, which is normally the experience once it kicks in.
We did, and before we attempted even our first Kaizen event, I think we were 2 years, 3 years on our journey before we even attempted something like that, because we wanted to make sure that when you're bringing lads into then a room where you're sticking them there for a week in order to sort of to break it and then re-engage it in a better way. So one of the first cells we decided to tackle, and we put a whiteboard up beside it, and we put sort of a new operating procedure there, and we made it as visual as possible, full of pictures, things like that, very little text, and we put a sort of part of the whiteboard for ideas. So day one, you're walking past and the lad's working away. "How's it going, Mark?" "I'm good." "John, how are you?" "I'm not bad at all." It'd be white.
Whiteboard.
White whiteboard. Day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, whatever it was. And I can't remember, but at one stage walking through the workshop with the workshop manager, and there was something written down, and I said, "Let's try that." And the workshop manager said, "I'm not sure that would work." I said, "Let's do it anyway." I said, would it cost as much to do it?" And he says, "No, it wouldn't." And I says, "Fine, let's do it." He says, "Why would we do it if it doesn't work?" So it's not the facts aside. The lads will see that we're listening, that we're taking on board ideas, and that we will use them. And so that's what we did. And lo and behold, suddenly there was 2 or 3 things. So as we then started to change cells, we included people and said, "Well, if you were doing it, you know, what would you do and how would you change it?" And the beautiful thing about it, from my point of view, is I don't know if you know Stephanie Prendeville. I took Stephanie on a tour. She asked, and took her on a tour of Inchicore Works. And so I'm 16 years gone out of the place. And Mark and Graham are the 2 managers there, and Rory is the works manager now. And you walk through that place and it's 50 times better than I left it. And, you know, you have things like where Graham is saying that, you know, there's about 120 or 130 suggestions annually in relation to how to change things and how to improve things and stuff like that. And you sort of go,
it's become the way of working.
It's become the norm.
I'm interested, John, personally, from your perspective. So, you know, you've gone through that journey, and obviously, you know, that kind of lean philosophy could be a key part of how you delivered impact. As a leader, how has the experiences with lean matured you as a leader? You know, what principles do you think it helped you to be better at? You know, what things really stuck with you, you know, throughout your career?
I suppose something I said earlier in relation to being, I don't have all the answers, and I don't think any of us ever will, or you know, or do. And I think you need to surround yourself with people that are better than you, and to be comfortable in that. Now that's not easy to do a lot of the times, but I honestly think it's important. And you know, there's the old adage: if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? And I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that, you know, we have to sort of constantly sort of change and look at how we do things. And as I say to any of the new people that come and work for us now that I'm interviewing for Iarnród Éireann, it's your railway. It's not mine. I'm kind of, you know, I'm at a stage now where I'm at the latter end of my career from a point of view of that. And the next 25, 30 years is a great time. Like yesterday, we signed a contract for the new fleet and the cross-border service, which is brilliant. And it's great to have that support from the government and from the department, you know.
It seems like I can't do any type of an interview anymore without talking about AI. So apologies in advance, John, right? And actually, I've been asked to do a lot of talks for AI at the moment as well. So I'm AI'd out, if you want to call it this stage. But, you know, in all seriousness, have you dipped your toes into the AI world in terms of some? I know you're very strong in on knowledge management. And I'm assuming you guys have looked at applying these kind of platforms in terms of how people access and, you know, gather knowledge.
Well, yeah, it's like, as I said, Barry, I'm kind of, you know, and there's me and about 500 others that are at the latter end of our career. And from a railway perspective, with safety being our number one priority, you know, length of tenure of service is a good thing. In some organisations, they say, nah, you like a bit of churn because, and particularly if you're in a startup, you know, you do like that churn because you need to get new ideas all the time. From a safety perspective, you need to have people that know what not to do as well as what to do from that perspective. So what we've got collectively is a challenge over the next sort of 5 years of close to 20,000 years of experience just walking out the door. And so how do we capture that? So what we've started to do is we're piloting a sort of an internal language model. From that, we're looking to upload all our technical standards, the quality standards, the safety standards, and then we're uploading interviews. We're holding interviews with people, and we're uploading the text, and we're training then the agent to be able to be a help, an assistant. In that sense, you know, how would you approach this, or what about that, or what about the other? And it's more the tacit knowledge that is in people's heads. It's not necessarily, you know,
just those little nuggets of wisdom that just walk, as you say, disappear, you know, evaporate.
Exactly, like the technical things will say when a set of points engage, there's a resistance drop, you know, over that, and the technical will say it's so many ohms, it's 1 point something ohms, seemingly, or something like that. That's not the point. It's how, you know, when you're facing trouble, or how, as you say, those little nuggets of, you know, the saying, Barry has that answer. You know,
Barry's not here anymore, so we now have it. I understand.
We now have it. So that's the pilot we're working on at the moment.
Really interesting. Last question, John. Look, you know, and again, we are moving into this, let's call it, you know, autonomous world, right? And, you know, there's different perspectives on good or bad for HR and all this kind of stuff. You know, as a HR professional yourself, you know, I'm going to say coming in. Can I say coming into the second curve of your career? Is that a more mature way to discuss it, right? You know, are you excited about where the HR profession is going? Are you worried about it? You know, I was speaking to a 19-year-old last week, and he said, "Look, we don't have a HR function. We've an AI tool that does 95% of the stuff, and we've got." Can't remember the name of the person he mentioned. You know, as he said, does the harder stuff a day a week. You know, where is your head at? You know, and wearing your CIPD hat, where's your head at around this autonomous age in HR?
It's a very ecumenical question in that sense.
You have to answer.
You do have to answer, though. Yeah.
We could be here all day. John,
exactly, we could. Personally, I think. I don't think we're going to end up in a situation whereby robots or anything that will do everything.
Yeah.
There'll always be human, and at the basic forefront of that is our nature to be. And listen, you go back to Maslow and sort of that you know, that need, the belonging sort of need. And I think we always have that. So I'll always think there'll be a requirement for an individual. But bear in mind that, you know, the role of HR is to improve and support the outputs of the organisation.
Yeah.
It is there for that, and also to support, you know, employees. And I think you support employees in order to deliver on the output, in order to ensure that everyone delivers on the output. So so the basic automatic things I think is brilliant.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'd be a firm supporter of it, because it frees up. And HR for a long time has sort of says, you know, we need to be transformational. And what you end up doing loads of transactional stuff.
Yeah.
Somebody has to do it.
Yeah, multiple initiatives. Yeah.
And so I think it'll free up time for HR, maybe to go and even do stuff like, you know, why are we doing it that way? Why don't we sort of engage some lean thinking and sort of say, you know, why can we do something different? And to get out. And one thing I always say to people is that whatever organisation you work for, you need to know what the business does.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I've always tried to get across to my HR team. It's not about just knowing how to recruit or how to do a competency framework or things like that. It's at the end of the day, like we carry 55 million people.
Yeah.
You know, we need to carry them safely.
Yeah.
You know, we're growing at such scale that we need to sort of support the organisation to do that. But what does the organisation do? And we move people, and we need to move them safely.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
So we need to have a good customer experience and things like that. And that's from a railway perspective.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter if I worked in Big Pharma or something like that. I'd need to know what everybody does. Now, I don't have to know it in depth, but I think you do need to know it. And I think AI will give HR the ability to be more curious in that sense.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because I do think there's a massive alignment between your level of connection of what a business does, your level of curiosity, and then how you view your capacity to change things. I think there's a kind of a 3C chain there. I was thinking about this last night, John, before I met you this morning, so just trying to sound intelligent. But, you know, I'm always interested. I always find that in the work I've done myself and teams I've worked with, when there's a really deep connection to the core of what the business is about, curiosity almost happens overnight, and there's no worries about are our jobs safe, because there's such a level of capacity focused on actual impact. You know, and so I think that gives me a little bit of optimism, I'm going to say, for, you know, the autonomous stage, because there's never going to be an end to that value chain, if you want to call it that, in terms of impact.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that totally,
John, brilliant speaking to you.
Barry, thanks very much.
And really thank you very much indeed for coming along and sharing your wisdom. Very much appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Fantastic interview from John. Lots of great insights there in terms of implementing a lean philosophy in driving business transformation. That's the end of the show for today. Thank you very much for listening and watching wherever you are. And please follow us on all of the popular channels. Thanks very much, guys.